Imagine digging through layers of earth, each spoonful a page from a history book written in soil and stone. You're in Jerusalem, a city that has been built, destroyed, and rebuilt for millennia. Every discovery here is a big deal, but sometimes you find something that just stops you in your tracks. Something small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, yet heavy with the weight of history. This is exactly what happened to a team of archaeologists working just outside the walls of the old city. They were carefully sifting through the debris of a 2,000-year-old drainage channel when something caught their eye. It wasn't gold, not a glittering jewel, but a small, dark, circular object, a coin. But this was no ordinary piece of currency. So, when exactly was this incredible coin made? The inscriptions give us the answer, and it's a chilling one. It was minted during what the rebels called the 4th year of the revolt. In our calendar, that translates to the year 69 to 70 CE. This date is absolutely critical. It's the final, desperate year of the uprising, just before the Roman general Titus and his legions breached Jerusalem's formidable walls. The people who created this coin were living on borrowed time, surrounded by enemies, with the Roman war machine poised for its final, crushing blow. In the first few years of the uprising, the rebels minted coins from high-quality silver. But by the 4th year, things had changed dramatically. The silver was gone. The coin discovered by archaeologists is made of bronze, a clear sign of the dire economic situation inside the besieged city. Imagine the scene: artisans working feverishly in a hidden corner of the city, the sounds of battle raging just outside their door. They would melt down whatever bronze they could find, perhaps old utensils, tools, or even captured Roman armor, to forge these symbols of their struggle. Each coin was a miniature piece of propaganda, a way to pay their soldiers and maintain a semblance of a functioning economy while broadcasting a message of unwavering faith and defiance to their people. The destruction of the Second Temple wasn't just a military and political catastrophe. For many, it was the fulfillment of a startling prophecy. About 40 years before the Romans tore the temple down, a Jewish teacher from Galilee named Jesus walked its courts. According to the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, his disciples were marveling at the sheer scale and beauty of the structure. They pointed out the massive stones and the magnificent buildings, a source of immense pride for every Jewish person. But Jesus' response to their awe was shocking and deeply unsettling. He looked at the glorious complex and made a grim prediction.
Do you see all these great buildings? Not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down.
Imagine the disbelief of his followers. This would have sounded like madness. The scale of the temple's destruction was, by all historical accounts, as total as Jesus had predicted. In their greed, the Roman legionaries used long bars and tools to pry apart every single stone, searching for every last drop of melted gold. In doing so, they literally left not one stone on another, fulfilling the prophecy in the most brutally literal way imaginable. So what message did the rebels stamp onto this final desperate coin? On one side, the coin features an inscription in ancient Hebrew that reads, Leherut Zion, which translates to, for the freedom of Zion, or in some interpretations, for the redemption of Zion. Zion is another name for Jerusalem, but it's more than just a place on a map. It represents the spiritual and national homeland of the Jewish people. This inscription was a battle cry, a declaration of what they were fighting and dying for, the liberation of their sacred city. The other side of the coin is just as meaningful. It depicts 3 symbols strongly associated with the Jewish harvest festival of Sukkot, also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. We see a lulav, which is a bundle made of a palm frond, myrtle, and willow branches, and next to it 2 etrogs, a type of citrus fruit. Sukkot is a festival that celebrates God's protection of the Israelites during their 40 years of wandering in the desert after the exodus from Egypt. By placing these symbols on their coin, the rebels were invoking a powerful story of divine salvation. To put these images on a coin during a brutal siege, when people were starving, is an incredible act of faith. This coin wasn't just currency, it was a prayer minted in metal, a tangible expression of a belief that their struggle was righteous, and that somehow they would be delivered. By creating their own coins with their own sacred language and religious symbols, the rebels were engaging in a culture war, replacing the image of a deified Roman emperor with symbols of their covenant with the one true God. To understand why the rebels were minting these coins, we have to understand the pressure cooker environment of Judea in the 1st century. For decades, the region had been under the thumb of the Roman Empire. Roman governors were often corrupt and deeply insensitive to Jewish religious customs. They imposed heavy taxes, raided the temple treasury, and placed imperial symbols in the holy city. A growing movement of revolutionaries known as the Zealots argued that paying taxes to Rome and accepting its rule was a betrayal of God, who was the only true king of Israel. The breaking point finally came in 66 CE. A series of escalating provocations by the Roman governor Gessius Florus led to riots in Jerusalem. The rebellion, which had been simmering for years, exploded into a full-scale war. In a stunning early victory, the rebels managed to ambush and wipe out a Roman legion, the Legio XII Fulminata. This victory was electrifying, but the Roman Empire did not take the loss of a legion lightly. Emperor Nero dispatched his best general Vespasian, with a massive force of over 60,000 professional soldiers to crush the rebellion. The Romans were methodical, brutal, and efficient. They started in the north, in Galilee, and slowly, systematically reconquered the region, city by city. By 69 CE, the year our bronze coin was minted, the rebellion had been pushed back to its last major stronghold, Jerusalem itself. So, where exactly did this messenger from the past turn up? The coin was discovered during an excavation conducted by the Israel Antiquities Authority in what is known as the City of David National Park, just south of the Temple Mount. The specific find spot is what makes this story even more fascinating. It was found at the bottom of a massive drainage channel that ran underneath the main street of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. This wasn't some back alley. This was the primary thoroughfare for pilgrims making their way up to the temple. Archaeologists have been painstakingly working their way through it, sifting every bucket of soil for clues. The channel itself is an archaeological treasure trove. As the city above was destroyed in 70 CE, all sorts of objects would have fallen or been washed into this subterranean tunnel. It acts as a sealed time capsule of the final days of Second Temple Jerusalem. What's truly mind-blowing is what this drainage channel runs alongside, a massive rock-hewn moat. The moat is enormous, measuring about 10 meters deep and cut directly into the bedrock. Its purpose was clear: to make a direct assault on the western wall of the Temple Mount nearly impossible for any invading army. It was a kill zone, an extra layer of defense for the most sacred place in the city. The discovery of the moat completely changes our understanding of Jerusalem's defenses. The fact that the coin was found here, in the debris of the city's destruction, is incredibly poignant. It connects the rebels' hopes for freedom with the very defensive structures they believed would guarantee it. The layout of ancient Jerusalem was no accident. It was a masterpiece of urban planning and engineering designed to project one thing above all else: power, both divine power and earthly power. At its heart was the Temple Mount, a colossal man-made platform built by King Herod the Great. The temple that sat atop it was sheathed in gold and white marble, designed to gleam in the sunlight and inspire awe in every visitor. It was a statement to the world that this was the center of the universe, the place where heaven and earth met. The city's engineering was on a scale that is hard to comprehend even today. Carving a 10-meter deep ditch out of solid bedrock with the tools available 2,000 years ago is an astonishing feat. This, combined with the city's 3 successive rings of defensive walls, made Jerusalem one of the most heavily fortified cities in the ancient world. Beneath the streets, an equally impressive world existed. These systems provided fresh water to the city's inhabitants and carried away waste, making life possible for a large population within the city walls. The grand paved street that ran above the channel was a processional way, a sacred route for the millions of pilgrims who flocked to the city for the major festivals. This combination of faith and fortification created a powerful sense of security and perhaps overconfidence. The people of Jerusalem, surrounded by their massive walls and living in the shadow of God's house, felt protected. It was a city built to last forever, yet it would fall within a generation. Now let's bring it all together. We have a coin minted in the final year of a desperate rebellion, bearing a message of hope for the redemption of Zion. We have a prophecy made 40 years earlier that this very place would be utterly destroyed. And we have the archaeological reality, the discovery of this coin in the rubble of that destruction, right next to a massive defensive moat that ultimately failed to protect the city. The connections are powerful and give you goosebumps. The coin is a physical embodiment of the hope that Jesus' prophecy warned against placing in buildings of stone. The people who minted and used this coin were holding onto a vision of a free Jerusalem, a city redeemed by God's power. Their faith was placed in their sacred space, their temple, and in their own ability to defend it. The Sukkot symbols on the coin show they were praying for a miracle, a repeat of the divine interventions of their past. They were looking for a physical, political salvation. The coin is a beautiful and tragic symbol of that hope, forged in the fires of the siege, a final prayer for deliverance before the end. Meanwhile, the prophecy of Jesus offered a different kind of hope, one that was not tied to a physical location. His prediction of the temple's fall was a radical reorientation of faith. He was suggesting that the connection to God was not dependent on a building, no matter how magnificent. When the Roman legions finally broke through the walls and the moat, they didn't just destroy a city, they brought a whole world to an end. For the Jewish people, it was a cataclysm that forced a reinvention of their religion around rabbis, synagogues, and sacred texts. For the early Christians, it was the dramatic fulfillment of their founders' words. The discovery of this one small bronze coin brings these two powerful narratives crashing together. It is a relic from the very people whose hopes were shattered, found in the very place where the prophecy was fulfilled. This artifact is a silent witness to the moment when the hope for the redemption of Zion met the reality of not one stone left on another. So why does a 2,000-year-old piece of bronze matter to us today? Because it connects us to the people who lived it, collapsing time and making ancient struggles feel surprisingly modern and relevant. It reminds us that what truly endures from the past are not the buildings of stone, but the stories, the ideas, and the hopes of the people who lived within them. This little piece of bronze is a whisper from a lost world, and if we listen closely,